Hello, welcome to Stories in Time. My name is Ellouise Schoettler. I'm a storyteller. I've been planning a trip. I'm going to be flying out of here to California in a couple of months, and I wanted to get just the right seat, the right place, so I was studying the plane, and it brought back to my memory something that happened to me a long time ago. But it's all about flying. So I'm going to tell it to you this morning. Oh, I guess it was a few years back that they were talking about in the news the man who had been made to sit on a toilet in one of these small planes, and he was just now suing them. There wasn't a seat available for him. The plane was packed. He was on there, and he sat on the toilet. And they were all upset about it, and he was going to get some money out of that. Now, if I had been on that plane, that could never have happened. You look at me and you see a calm-faced grandmother, a little undisturbed. But I am also a watcher. I don't tell many people, I don't brag about this, but I am. And I have thrown toilet sitters off of planes rather than having them fly in the flight with me. You don't believe that, do you? The first time that I ever let anybody know that I was a watcher was coming out of Charleston, South Carolina, on a smaller plane, a 727. You know, there were 3 on one side and an aisle. That was so long ago that I had to walk out of the terminal, across the asphalt, and up the stairs to get on the plane. Well, I always make up some reason that I have to get on the plane first, especially if I'm not assigned a seat. And the reason for that is if you're a watcher, you need a front of the plane seat on the aisle, because that's the best place to be sitting to see everything. And a watcher has to watch. So I was sitting on an aisle seat, and it was crowded. I mean, people were just running up those steps, clank, 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 and then pushing in to get to their seat. I saw the first pilot, extra pilot, when he came through, just with a small bag. He was wearing his flying uniform. And they let him go sit in the cockpit with the pilot and the co-pilot. There's an extra seat in there. And so I thought, well, that makes sense. There's an extra seat in there, so that's all right. And so then I was settling down, picking up another book, when I heard this clank, 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 and it was a man running up the stairs just toward the end of near the takeoff, and he was another pilot. He was wearing his flying uniform, and he was carrying a bag, you know, a suit bag. And he came in, the stewardess knew him, everybody knew him, and he said something, and they said, fine, you know, hang it up. And then I think she must have said, you can just sit on the toilet in there. And I watched that happening. He was standing there at the little teeny tiny doorway that looked toward the teeny tiny galley. And when they started to, you know, move the things around and get ready to seal up, he stepped in to the teeny tiny bathroom where there was a toilet. And when I saw that, I ding, and she came over, the stewardess came over and said, Madam, is there anything wrong? I said, well, I don't know. I want to ask you whether there's anything wrong. And she said, what do you mean you want to ask me if there's anything wrong with you? And I said, no, I saw that man, he's a pilot, that's true, get into the little teeny tiny galley over there next to the bathroom, and then he stepped into the bathroom and he closed the door, and he's been gone ever since. Is he flying with us while he's sitting on the toilet? Oh, and she just turned and started to walk away, and she wasn't going to pay any attention to me at all. And I said, may I put this to you another way? I need an answer to that question. What? Is that what's happening? Because if it is, and he steps out of that bathroom when we land in Charlotte, I'm calling the supervisor. I'm going to report it. Well, she turned around quickly, and she went up to the pilot's door, and she knocked, knock, 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 opened it up, and she stuck her head in, and I heard her whispering a little bit, and then she came out, closed the door. She went over, knocked on that little teeny tiny bathroom door and opened the door, and she said, "You need to come out." He came out, picked up his bag, opened the door, which was just barely locked, and then went right down the steps and off the plane. They tightened up, closed everything up, got ready. The pilots were already jiggling around because they were ready to go, and so they took off right away. As soon as they were level and everything was okay and it had been noticed out there and announced to the passengers, you could take your seatbelt off but stay in the seat, you know, a little bit. And she walked over to me, and she leaned over and she said, "Who are you?" I was startled. What did it matter who I was? "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm not anybody." She said, "Who are you and why are you asking those questions?" And you know what? I realized what she was saying. I had on my Dress for Success suit. I had been down here for a conference. She thought I was an inspector. I said, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Let's just leave it at this. I saw something, I asked about it, and we've settled it. And let's not talk about it anymore." She sort of shot me a nasty little look, and then she went on about and did her job just perfectly. Perfectly. That's what a watcher does. A watcher is sitting up there at the front to be careful, to turn around and to look down the aisles and to see that there's nothing going on that could be of any trouble. No. Well, Jim and I were in Los Angeles not long, maybe a month or so after that. We were coming home. We'd been out to visit our daughter, and we were coming home. And we were sitting in a small cafe down in the terminal. Early, we always take the early plane back. And there was a man sitting there in a wheelchair, not too far from us, but not next door. And I saw him take something out of his pocket and unwound string from around it, and it dropped. And so he had this in this hand, the string was down taut, and it was going back and forth and back and forth. I couldn't believe my eyes. I didn't know what was going on here. So I just scooched up. I pulled my seat up a little bit and got a little bit nearer to him. And as I came closer to his table, he was talking. He was talking to a triangular crystal. I thought maybe it's a new telephone, maybe it's some kind of a communicator. And so I got as close as I could get without his seeing that I was getting close. And he was talking. "We're coming in at 10 minutes after 4 this afternoon at Dulles." That's the plane I'm going to be on. "We're coming in at 10 after 4 to Dulles. Are you going to watch out for us? I'll be in my wheelchair. You can see that, I'm sure. I'll be in my wheelchair, and they're going to give me a seat at the front of the plane. Not in first class, just in the front of the plane. Will you look out for us, for all of us that are going to be on that big plane?" I thought, what is going on here? What is happening? So Jim had seen me move over toward this man, and he sort of moved over himself and touched me on the shoulder and said, "Don't you think you should come back over here?" And I said, I'm coming. Have you been listening to him?" He said, "A little, but not much." "Did you hear what he was saying?" Yes. Do you think he's crazy? And he said, well, we can't say about that. Jim's a psychiatrist, and he wasn't going to diagnose. And he said, we can't be too sure about that, Ellouise. But look at him. He looks so happy. Well, he did. Looking into his face, smiling face, was very reassuring. So I went back over to sit close to Jim, and when they called our plane, we were going to be sitting up front behind him. And as I got on and went to our seat, and I saw that he was actually on the aisle and he had the better view of the plane, he must think that he's a watcher too. But he's a better watcher than I am, because he has somebody talking to him during the whole thing. And so I sat down and I thought, he's already turned it over. He's turned it over to something really important. And I sat back, picked up a book, sat back in the seat, and I thought, I don't need to worry about this one. I'm going to just let it go. Why did I feel so good about it? Because at the end of his conversation in the restaurant, to whoever was on the other side of that crystal, I heard him say, oh no, don't hang up yet. Don't hang up. I have just one more question. How is Jesus? Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. So glad to hear that. Now be sure, don't mess us up. Don't forget us. We'll be on that plane. Thank you very much. It's always good to know who others are traveling with.